Hey there and welcome back to the garden. Today we're going to run through how to trim a really overgrown pygmy date palm. This cluster consists of 3 individual trunks, but unfortunately one of them is dead. To start, I just trim off some of the really obvious branches so I can get a better idea of what we're working with. When we take a closer look, we can see tons of dead fronds, dead dried seed pods, dying fronds, and parts of the fronds that weren't quite cut back enough. To start cleaning up this gnarly mess, you'll pick a depth you want to cut back to and mimic that all the way around the trunk. I find it easiest to start this process from the bottom of the tree, moving your way upwards towards the new growth. Once you've got the palm tree on the right track and everything is being trimmed properly every single time, you'll never have to go back through and do a big cleanup like this again. Now we'll cut the fronds properly from the start to avoid creating a bigger mess later on. The fronds of the pygmy date palm has spikes closer to the trunk, so see 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to want to cut below the lowest spike. A trick I found is using the bottom of the loppers, the thick part, not the part that has the cutting edge, but the thick part on the bottom, to really get in there and set your cut, and then it makes it easier to pull the sharper part through. An overgrown, unpruned palm like this creates a perfect environment for mealybugs and scales to proliferate on the palm tree. I found that it's really hard to completely get rid of these pests, it's more about managing them to a lower level. The best thing to do when you see a palm frond covered in bugs is just cut it off and throw it in the trash. Sometimes with the remnants of the fronds that were cut back in the past, it's as easy as just pulling them off, but other times you really have to get in there with the clippers and lop them off. Now we're going to take everything we've learned at the beginning of the video and clean up the rest of this trunk. After about 20 minutes of real-time pruning, we're starting to see the clean look that we're going for. All that's left on this one is to clean up the backside, and then we're ready to move on to the next one. This stage of the pruning process is always the most satisfying for me because all the hard work is done and all we have to do is keep that depth and continue cutting around the trunk to get the style we're going for. For the dead trunk of this trio, we're just going to clean it up and make it look nice, but the client asked us to leave it because they're going to plant some succulents up on the top and around the sides of it. With the first 2 done, it's time to move on to the next one. This last one is just so overgrown that I had to get one more close-up to show you guys what we're working with. For this last palm, we're going to do it in triple speed, but stay tuned until the end to watch how I de-shed the bottom of all the trunks. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my video. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more how-tos and more garden content from my own house and from my clients' houses. When you're out filming gardening videos, you're really up to the elements. The neighbor next door was using his weed whacker. The trash man showed up and started making so much noise, so I lowered the sound in this portion of the clip. You don't have to have a huge arsenal of tools to make a palm tree look this good. The only tools I used today were my loppers, my clippers, and leather gloves. I'd also recommend wearing eye protection, long sleeves, and long pants. With the tree canopies completely trimmed and the top of the trunks cleaned up, it's time to pick up all the mess we've made so we can move on to de-shedding the trunks of these trees. In this shot you can really see how bulky the trunks of the trees are, and it's just full of old fibers and old bases of fronds. The tool I'm using here is called a grape hook knife. You're going to want to get the tip of the knife behind the shield and section of the tree you're trying to shed and pull it horizontally. The longer the material has stayed on the tree, the more likely it is to be dead and dry, so it'll rip off very easily using this process. Once you're starting to get a section cleared, you can start taking the knife vertically and shedding up and down. Just be careful to not dig too much into the trunk, as that could damage the tree. This portion of the trunk proved to be really stubborn and the grape hook knife wasn't cutting it, so I had to whip out the loppers again and cut each piece individually. To give you an idea of how long it took me to clean up this one section of the tree, this part of the video is sped up 10 times normal speed. I'll be honest with you, at this point I got really discouraged because it was so difficult even with the loppers to cut these pieces off, but the outcome was so worth it. Just take a second and look at how much debris we created after de-shedding these 3 trunks. I like to leave a little ball of the fibers and fronds at the top because it creates a nice visual look. Let's take a step back and admire all the hard work we've done today. Thank you so much for coming along as I trim these Pygmy Date Palms. As we all know, the yard work never ends, so please subscribe to follow me along this gardening journey.